The NBA draft is about finding future stars, but that's no easy feat, even projecting great college players to the next level. But I don't think it's particularly controversial to say that young players who use a lot of possessions efficiently as a scorer and as playmakers, and with the athleticism to finish above the rim, are good bets to translate to the next level. And there's no better example in the 2026 NBA draft of this than North Carolina freshman Caleb Wilson, who is an absurd scorer and playmaker for his level of athleticism. We can express these ideas of efficient, high usage creation and above the rim finishing statistically, and when we look at it through that lens, Caleb Wilson exists in rare air. Only Ben Simmons and Zion Williamson, among under 20-year-old college players since 2008, have matched Wilson's scoring and passing volume and efficiency and dunk total. And I want to pay extra attention to that dunk number. Wilson, of course, has a whole half season to sustain or not sustain the efficiency, but he's already dunked the ball over 50 times in 16 games, on pace to shatter that number, about 70 from Zion. And his dunking and above the rim athleticism really is the foundation of his game. Wilson is an absurd vertical athlete with both the maximum jump height, length, and quick leaping off the ground to dominate as an above rim finisher on the break in the half court. And his most deadly stuff comes when he can self-create dunks in the half court. He's not an incredible handler, but Wilson's stride length, speed, burst, flexibility, and body control on these drives allows him to dunk the ball in semi-transition or even in the half court without relying on teammates to assist him, and that's an extremely valuable commodity translating to the NBA. But Wilson is also a phenomenal playmaker who can create these easy shots at the basket for teammates as well. Wilson is far more talented as a playmaker than most freakishly athletic freshman forwards like him, and this is probably my favorite pass of his this season, despite it resulting in a team turnover. But let's look at how Wilson sets this up. He's going to easily blow by his defender with his quick first step, and the low man defender has to step up to take away the drive, and then the corner defender has to come help the helper and take away that easy interior pass. But that corner defender is a bit too slow, so Wilson can read this on the move and pass it into space. That's really impressive, and I think he's just as impressive an off-ball passer, maybe even more impressive. Let's notice Kansas double teaming the ball here, which creates an off-ball advantage. Peterson and Tiller both going to the ball, and that means number 13 is sprinting out to the short corner to take away that extra pass. Wilson is reading the weak defender who has to pick between the shooter and Vasar on the interior, and Wilson makes the interior pass for the dunk, but he's processing this all instantaneously rather than like we are over a minute. Wilson's exceptional athleticism helps him dominate on the defensive end just as he does on offense, and I think defensively is the easiest place to project him to be a true NBA superstar. Obviously, he has the physical tools of a future all-league first-team defender, but he's impacting the game on that end really well too. He's a menacing playmaker with excellent instincts. Of course, he can leap above the rim to block crazy shots. Oftentimes, he'll block shots with his armpit because of how high he can get up, but Wilson is great deflecting passes, and his flexibility and mobility that aids him on offense allows him to deflect passes well out of his area and rotate his arms in the kind of unnatural position to nab steals and create extra possessions. And Wilson's defense certainly hasn't been particularly consistent. He's a bit of a technical mess on the ball, and his off-ball awareness and decision-making isn't consistent, as you can see based on my film-based grading that we're going to look at on the screen right here. Wilson hasn't been particularly consistent this year by my view, and defense is a big part of that. There are some games where he's weaponizing his tools, like that Kansas game or the Ohio State game, completely wrecking both sides of the ball. But in some of these other games, we just don't see him being as impactful as you'd think. He's missing rotations, he's not guarding the ball as disciplined as he should be, but he is trending up, and this isn't something I worry a ton about with young players, especially ones as athletically gifted and intense as Williams. I definitely don't think Wilson has a motor problem. He's intense, he plays hard, and when he locks in on the ball, he is nearly impossible to get around, but there is going to need to be some defensive seasoning, as is the case for most teenagers. But I think it's easy to project Wilson as an eventual all-league defender, and despite his offense, I do think there's a range of outcomes on that end. I'd expect him to be elite on defense. So Wilson is a monster athlete. He's productive, he can score, he can pass, he can defend. So why don't I view him on the level of Darren Peterson, AJ Demansah, and Cameron Boozer? Despite his two-way impact, the value of offensive primary creation, and especially shooting, ball handling, and advantage creation off the dribble, is just something that Wilson doesn't have that the other three very much do. Wilson has only made 4 threes on the season and attempted 16 of them at the point of recording this, and he'll often pass up open looks, which stagnates the offense. And Wilson's ball handling is also pretty weak, especially against contact. He has a pretty skinny, slight frame at the moment, which isn't a crazy long-term concern, but that will lead to turnovers and loose balls when Wilson dives into traffic and isn't able to maintain balance and core strength. But I think some of the more problematic areas are Wilson's decision making and ability to read with a live dribble. Wilson is a great finisher overall because of his dunking, but his layup finishing has been extremely poor, under 40% in the half court, but I don't think that's as much a touch issue as it is a decision making and problem solving one. Wilson settles for so many difficult shots at the basket where he's twisting and leaning in between defenders, or he'll lose his balance and force a tough shot off the dribble, where in so many of these cases, there's easy kick-out passes to the wing or interior passes he can make, or even just resetting the play. And Wilson's limited pull-up threat definitely makes defenses sag off him and makes it tougher to drive and create advantages. He has a nice fadeaway, and his mid-range touch is definitely a positive indicator for potential shooting development, but Wilson's limitations as a perimeter creator do, I think, keep him out of that top tier of prospects. But the way Wilson is playing this year is undeniable. He owns 3 of my top 5 graded games of the entire cycle based on my film-based grading on offense and defense, and we can see he impacts the game on both ends like very few players can. He's not as elite offensively as a Cameron Boozer or a Darren Peterson or an AJ Demansah, but I think he projects as good or better of all of those guys on the defensive end. And Wilson, I think, is an easy bet to be the 4th pick in this draft. I, at the moment, don't see an easy path for him leapfrogging the top 3, but he really does remind me of a player who could develop into a Blake Griffin type star, where he's finishing above the rim next to an elite point guard, but he also can dribble into dunks, maybe shoot a little bit in the mid-range, and block shots as well. There's a ton of room for Wilson to grow, and in a lot of drafts, he would be the runaway #1 pick. Unfortunately for him, the 2026 draft happens to be one of the strongest in a long time, but that shouldn't let us underrate how good Wilson is. Even if I don't think he necessarily has MVP level upside like the top 3 players, his blend of paint scoring, playmaking, and defensive upside could help him develop into a 2-way star at the NBA level, and I think all of that makes him worth an easy top 5 pick in the 2026 NBA draft.